Recorded. Okay.
Okay.
Laura.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming out on this beautiful Saturday as we continue our Foundation Seminar Saturday series. We are really delighted that you have all come out. The good news is that the last one of our seminars for this year is actually also the first one for next year. So we're welcome to all of our presidents-elect and presidents nominee who are here to get qualified to receive grants. We're happy today that we're going to start off with our vice chair of the foundation committee, the man who knows the most about grants of anybody, probably possibly in the entire Rotary system, but certainly District 5000. We are happy to have him. After Mark speaks, then we will have our stewardship chair, Phil Sammer, who will come on and go through the actual qualification process. And then at the end of that time, we will have a question and answer session. As Benson mentioned, we are asking everyone to please put your name and your club name in the chat.
Oh, wait, sorry.
And everyone, thank you so very much for being here. Please do mute yourself if you have that ability. And I will now turn it over to Mark Harbison.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out for this. What we're doing today is a grants qualification seminar. And what I'm going to do in the beginning of this is to talk about some of the changes in the grants world and then go through some of the resources to help you navigate this whole system. We were on a call with Ravi Vinjan recently, the incoming trustee chair of the Rotary Foundation. And he was talking about the fact that the annual fund, which is what funds our World Fund, is growing at about 5% a year. The demand for global grants has grown by 80%, and it continues to grow even more.
Cheryl Parker.
I'm sorry?
Join the meeting.
Oh, I heard noise in the background. So obviously, with that kind of pressure on the finance, the Rotary Foundation has had to make some pretty dramatic changes in policy. And the one I want to talk about at the very beginning, because I want you all to help, the Rotary Foundation, because of the pressure on finance, the extreme demand for global grants, has cut back on the matching for club cash on global grants. So in the old system, the leverage on global grants was 3.5. So the district matched your club contributions. The Rotary Foundation matched the district, and they also matched the club 50 cents on the dollar. They have eliminated that 50 cents match. As you can imagine, that is putting even more, it is making it even more difficult for clubs to raise the funds they need to fund their grants. So I know that there is pressure on all of you, that you're all dealing with COVID-19, with fundraising issues, all of that. But if you can find some extra money for your entertainment, it would really help the clubs if you could give a little bit more than your allocation for matching. So that's my pitch for that. So what I'm going to do is go through some of the resources. I'm going to start off with the big picture. First of all, I want to give you an idea of the scale of the impact of the grants program in the whole world of private philanthropic giving. what is the status of Rotary in the Rotary world? This is for 2019-20. So far this year, we have given 494 district grants for $27.7 million. We have given 1,403 global grants for $97.9 million. So far, $2 million to disaster response grants. So in 2020, $2 million has been allocated just for those types of grants. Polio Plus, $157 million. This is where we have a major impact on internationally known organizations. So we partner with the World Health Organization, with UNESCO, with the CDC. People know us for this work in polio. And finally, the Rotary Peace Center is one of the greatest initiatives of the Rotary Foundation. 94 fellows were approved for $4.1 million. And there are now almost 1,000 Peace Fellows working in NGOs, in government, in nonprofits all over the world. So it's a major impact on the United Nations SDGs, on all of the goals of the various people working at international finance. So the first place to start with learning about grants is on the Rotary International website. And the new Learning Center is an incredible source of training on all sorts of topics, all the way from club secretary to vocational service chair to district roles, anything you can think of. They have recently included a fantastic grants module. And the way you get into this grants module is to start with the Learning Center. It's at the very first page of My Rotary, and go to the Learning Center. This is the landing page for the Rotary Center. The fastest way to get to the grant management seminar is to type it into this little box up at the top and type in grant management. And that will take you to this screen. And you'll see here, there are some possibilities here. On the far right is the grant management seminar, which is the one that you will be required to take if you missed this seminar, or if you don't have 2 members at this seminar. And this grant management seminar is about 2 hours long, and there is an examination at the end. So it's, it's a fairly rigorous program, but it covers all sorts of topics. If you're pretty confident that you know all about grants, you can do the grant management recertification certificate, which is on the left. And if you'd rather do it in German, you can do that too, and that's in the middle. So here's a screenshot of what all is on the 9 courses that are in the grant management learning module. So it covers everything from an overview to sustainability to community assessments, project planning, scholarships, and also rules, responsibilities. These are the things we are going to get into in stewardship. As I said, I want you to know about this because it is an invaluable source, and it will be a required source for people who, for clubs that did not have enough members attending this seminar. So the next level is getting into the actual grant center itself. And again, the way you do that is to go to the My Rotary page, and there is a Take Action tab. You follow the Take Action tab down to Grant Center, apply for grants, and then Grant Center. So This is actually when you get into the grant center, this is what it looks like. So up at the top, you see the Rotary logo and you see grant center, and then you see a menu across the top. Apply for a grant is where you want to start. Now, what I want you to notice about this page on the Rotary, on the Grant Center site is all of these documents on the right-hand sidebar. This is an incredible resource because it gives you, for example, areas of focus policy statement. It tells you about the areas of focus and how to make sure your project aligns with the areas of focus of the Rotary Foundation. So if you're interested in doing a water project, go to the areas of focus policy statements, see what sorts of grants they support, what sorts of grants they do not support, which is very important. And then they also have some suggestions of what kinds of grants have worked in the past or have had great impact. In all new grants going forward, a community assessment is required. A community assessment requires you or your partner club in the host country to go out into the community and find out what their priorities are. So instead of saying, gee, I'd like to do a water project in Timbuktu, you actually have to find a Rotary club in Timbuktu. And then they have to go to their community and say, you know, we're thinking about doing something like this. What do you think? And it gives them a chance to respond. You can even go to them and say, what are your priorities? What does the community need? What would you most like to see happen in your community that we can help you with? So the community assessment is required. It's one of the things that distinguishes us from other types of charitable foundations. We do not work with governments. We do not work with the Army. We do not work with particular political parties. We work with other Rotary clubs and districts in the countries that we're interested in working in. And that is an important grassroots level of connectedness that is very important for us. So the community assessment is a key to getting into the entire purpose of Rotary Foundation grants. So, you know, going on, actually, if you want to use it, there's a global grant application template. So what you can do is use it as a worksheet. Go in, fill out all your information, and you can use that template. Once you've completed it, you can send it to me or send it to James Ham. You can send it to the project manager in Chicago at the Rotary Foundation and say, you know, here's the grant that we're working on. What do you think? Will it fly? Will it work? I can help you. James Ham can help you. There are lots of people in our district who know a lot about global grants. And, if I don't know the answer, I'll refer you to one of them, or I'll go talk to the grant manager. The thing is that you don't really have to do that. What you can do is actually go to the middle of the screen where it says, choose the type of grant you're applying for, and click on Global Grant, and you can start working on a global grant in real time in the real application. And it will be saved as a draft. So don't worry, it's not going to be submitted. No one at the Rotary Foundation is going to see it. So you can write grants to your heart's content. It will remain a draft until you submit it and it's approved by the district officers in District 5000. So, play around, have some fun with it, and, see what the application looks like. Don't be afraid of it because it's not that intimidating. So those are some of the tools that are on this apply for a grant page. And, like I said, explore a little bit, look around, see what it looks like, get comfortable with it, and then think about a project you would like to do. The next step is to go to the District 5000 website. And this is where we get into the specific requirements for our district. There are two levels of administration for Rotary grants. In the case of district grants, we control the district grant process. So the approvals for district grants, the oversight, the stewardship, all takes place at the district level. We have to submit, as a district, we have to submit a final report at the very end of our grant process after you've completed all of your projects, and the Rotary Foundation will review it. But the individual project reviews, all of that will take place in our district. We do our own qualifications, so we manage the documents, the MOU, the financial management plan. In the case of global grants, it is administered at the Rotary Foundation level. So they do the audits, they do the approvals, they do the final report and the reviews. So it's very important. Also, the style of distributing money. When we receive the DDF, how do we give it to the clubs? How do we do the applications? So I'll touch on that at the end, and then Phil Sammer will get into it in more detail in his presentation. But this is our district grants page on the Rotary Foundation website. At the very top of the screen, you see the initial landing page menu. Right in the middle, it says Foundation and Grants. If you click on that, you will get this drop-down menu that I show you here. You click on Grants. You can also click on About the Rotary Foundation to learn more, or on Polio Plus. But click on Grants, and you will get this drop-down menu on the right: District Grant Info, Global Grant Info, and Peace Fellowships. So the page I have up now is District Grants. Look at that. Look at the sidebar where all of your documents are located. So the club allocations of DDF, all the grant documents, the district grant application, the question and the frequently asked questions, instructions for filling out the grant, the qualification checklists, District 5000 grants, a management seminar, all of that is on the District 5000 website. So when you're looking for that document and you're saying, oh, wow, where do I get the MOU? This is where you go to get the MOU, to get the financial management plan, to get the applications that you need. This is a continuation of that page. So these are the qualification requirements on the left. And then in the sidebar, we have all of the documents that you need to complete the qualification documents. Okay? Okay, the next page is the global grants page. Again, if you look at this, if you look at the drop-down menu up at the top, we start off with Foundation and Grants, go to the Grants tab, and then on the right, you've got another drop-down menu, go to Global Grant Info. And on this page, you will see, again, there's a sidebar with all of the PowerPoint presentations, all of the documents, webinars, again, the district allocations for global grants, all of that information is there. Take a look at that page, explore it. When you scroll down from the screen I'm showing you now, it will give you all of the projects that we are working on in 2021. So we have 3 great projects in Nepal. We have a project in India, a project in the Philippines, about 8 great projects that are open now for you to make commitments of global grants. And remember, the deadline is November 1, and you need to make an allocation, a decision on your commitment by November 1st. So that's the global grant management resources on the District 5000 website. Okay, to get into the way we differ, and this is surprising for a lot of people that I talk to in district outside of ours. This is the way the World Fund works. The World Fund awards us a certain amount of share that is about half of the contributions that we made 3 years ago. So if you follow this spreadsheet, over on the right-hand side, it shows the District 5000 contributions to the annual programs fund 3 years ago for each year, for each fiscal year that we're working on for DDF allocations. Half of the money that we give goes to the World Fund. All of that money eventually comes back to us in the form of matching for our global grants. So we always use all of our global grant money. We always use all of our matching. So when you see that, for example, in 2020-21, we gave 289,000 back in 2018. So we're getting a total of 289,000. The DDF that comes directly back to us is half of that, so 144,000. The other half goes into the World Fund, and that is used to fund our global grants, our Peace Fellows, and Polio Plus. So that's how that works. Where we differ from other districts is what we do with the money once we get it. What we do in our district is we take the maximum allocation of 50% for district grants. Those district grants are used to fund our local projects or small international projects. This year, because we started with 144,649, we're allocating 50% of that, or 72,325 to our district clubs. So all of that money is divided up among the clubs based on your contributions to the Rotary Foundation for the last 3 years. So we give all of that money back to you in the form of district grant allocations and global grant allocations. The remaining 50% goes to global grants, to Polio Plus, and to the Peace Centers. So 67,000 to global grants, 28,930 to polio, and $5,000 to the Peace Centers. Now you may have noticed that that doesn't add up to $67,000 or to 72,000. It does not, and that's because fortunately our district has managed to accumulate reserves over many, many, many years, and we're able to use some of that money to fund our contribution to Polio Plus or to the Peace Centers. And that leaves the remaining amount for global grants that are initiated in our own district. So I really want to emphasize that. I'm working with a district in Japan that gives none of its district grant money to the clubs. They have one big district grant project. It goes to fund ventilators or dialysis machines for a hospital in Japan. And, the clubs can participate if they want to, but it's not the main point of their district grant program. Global grants are controlled by the district. Clubs are asked to contribute cash, but the decisions on global grants are made by the district, and they set the priorities. They usually do ask the clubs what their interests are. Right now, the clubs in Japan are interested in projects in Nepal. So I just had a discussion with their grants manager about our grants in Nepal. But basically, they make the decisions. In our district, it all goes back to the clubs. You make your own decisions. You decide where you want your DDF to go. So that's it for me. And Phil Sammer will go through the qualification process with you and talk about the importance of stewardships. So I'll stop screen sharing right here and Phil can get started. Thank you all for listening.
You need to unmute yourself, Phil, please. Hey, Phil. Oh, there you go. Okay. You're still muted, Phil.
Okay, it was a drop-down menu, sorry.
There you go. All righty. Thank you.
Okay, so Mark, thank you for that interesting explanation about how the grants work. This section is going to teach you how to be good stewards of those grants and how to qualify to receive grants. One of the important things that we have that we need to know is that the Rotary Foundation is a very unique foundation. It's actually one of the top scoring foundations as listed by Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator is one of the most important ranking organizations in the world for charities. And if you look at our overall scoring and rating, we're a 4-star on the Charity Navigator. We're also for financial and for accounting and transparency, we're scoring 100. So we're 4 for all of those. And the reason this is so important is because the Charity Navigator has faith in the fact that the Rotary Foundation has very specific rules and regulations for the use of its money. And a very small amount of money goes back to administration of the foundation. So we have to be very careful about how we are stewards of the money, and we have to be careful about how we use the money, because again, the Charity Navigator uses those areas to rate us. So it's very important that we keep that in mind. So what is stewardship? Well, stewardship is the responsible management and oversight of grant funds, which ensures that funds are used properly and benefit the populations in need. And again, something to really emphasize there is ensures that funds are used properly. That's a very important part of stewardship, and of course, responsible management. So what are the activities that we need to do to be good stewards of our money? The foundation manages the grant funds through report tracking, routine monitoring, investigating any allegations of misuse of funds, stewardship seminars, which we're in the middle of right now, and also qualification, which we're doing at the same time. What are some of the stewardship practices that we need to have? Well, we need to supervise our projects properly. We need to implement projects as approved. We need to report any irregularities. Is someone not submitting the proper backup for purchases, things like that. We need to submit timely reports. One thing to remember is that when we're doing our grants, we have to do a final report. And without a final report, that means that we're not going to be able to get the money that we need for the following year. So it's very important that your final report is submitted on a timely basis so that it doesn't hold up our allocations for the following year. We need to retain documents, and we'll see how long in a moment. And we need to have a club stewardship committee. Now, normally you don't want this to be the treasurer for obvious reasons, and or another officer in the club that has perhaps a signatory, is a signatory on your account, your grants account. You want someone who is sort of not connected to the administration of the club. And this can be a committee of 1 or 2 people, but it's up to you how you do it. But a stewardship committee, in my opinion, is a very important part of good stewardship practices. So grant financial requirements, all right? Disbursement requirements. Do not disperse your funds until your grant funds are received. In other words, if you have a project and it's buying dictionaries, which a lot of people do, if you spend that money before your grant funds are received, you cannot be reimbursed through your grant funds. You must wait until you get your grant funds before you spend money. And that's a very important factor to keep in mind. You know, you lose the money that you've put in there unless you wait for those grant funds to be received. You need to maintain separate grant bank accounts. 2 signatures are required for disbursements, and invoices and proof of payment are required for all disbursements. This is just normal good business practices. Proof of expenditures, you want to promptly deliver your receipts for all the expenditures to the club treasurer. If there's any difference between the receipt and the invoice amounts, You have to provide documentation to the treasurer why this has happened. And also you would need to let your stewardship committee chair know as well that there was a discrepancy here. We need to retain our physical records and electronic records for 5 years. And this is from the date of approval of your final report. So when you submit your final report for any of your grants, we have to keep all those records for 5 years. It's kind of humbug in a way, you know, it's a little difficult to have a place to physically put them. The electronic form is a little bit different, but as far as the physical form goes, you need those paper records as well. Monthly reconciliation, the district grant account and each global grant account has to be reconciled on the monthly basis by the club treasurer. And a report of this should be made to your club president, your president-elect, and especially your stewardship committee chair, so they can see that the accounts are being reconciled on a regular basis and not falling in arrears. Clubs will only be required to maintain a global grant account if they are responsible for the management of the funds. Normally, this role falls to your international partner, but nevertheless, your partner clubs, in other words, you or any club that you're partnering with overseas, you should also monitor those expenses. It can be easy, especially if it's a club that's in a difficult area to connect with. It's very important that you're aware at all times of how that money is being spent, and that the money and all of the receipts and things like that are in order, and that the partner club in the foreign country is following good stewardship practices. We instituted a few years ago a district audit of grant records. About 15% of clubs will be selected for the audit each year. If your club is selected to be audited, the following documents will be requested for the review by a member of the audit committee. Generally, Ron Young is our current audit chair, and generally he will have a couple of other auditors, especially on the neighbor islands, to help with these reviews. These are the things that you're going to need, and in a minute I'll ask Ron to talk a little bit about what typically are some of the things that are missing from audits that he would need for audits. You do need to show the revenues and disbursements for your project. You need your bank statements. You need canceled checks. You need bank signature cards showing who has the right to sign checks. You need your check registers. You need your invoices and receipts to support these disbursements. And you need bank reconciliations. Okay. Also, the district grant account and each global grant account. Oh, sorry, I went the wrong way. Also, a list of physical assets are required for the grant projects, if there are any. A lot of times there won't be physical assets, but if there are, we need to have that. And we have to report to district misuse of any funds. And this would be fall on the stewardship chair as well to be tracking that. These reviews are only limited to the grant. Okay, we're not auditing your other operations or other bank accounts of the club. So I'll pass it off to Ron right now, and he can explain a little bit about some of the issues that come up during audits. Ron? I think he has the same muting problem I had.
Oh, you, Ron, go ahead and unmute yourself. Well, let me see if I can help him there. Hang on a second. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Ron.
Oh, okay. I'm on. Well, good morning, everyone. The purpose of the audit committee is to see if the clubs comply with all the requirements that are spelled out in the FMP, Financial Management Plan, and the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. these two documents pretty much contain the same requirements, just enumerated by Phil in his presentation. We use the word audit, but I just want to tell all of you not to be afraid. It's nothing to be fearful of. We just want to see that you comply with it. And if you don't, we will try to help you to be in compliance. And this year, we just finished auditing the grants for the last period. And they did very well. Almost all of them met the requirements. But if there was any weaknesses, it might be the thing that Phil mentioned about the stewardship chair. The clubs don't seem to have such a person that would maintain the records of the club for the 5 years that is required. And I guess it moves on from chairman to chairman for the project chairman, and not one person responsible for maintenance of the records for 5 years. And I know it's a humbug to say you got to have the paper records as well as electronic records. But for our audit purpose, at least have records that we can access to see if you are in compliance. So, yeah, the custody of records was, if anything, a negative of clubs. And okay, the way we do the audits for your incoming presidents is that we do it online. We don't have to be face to face. And we found it works very well these past few years, where they scan the documents we need and they email it to the auditors. I use several auditors, it's not me alone. And you will be notified right after August. I think August 1 is the deadline to submit your final reports. And thereafter, we will select on a random basis. What's that? We'll select on a random basis the clubs to be audited. We don't audit all 100% of the clubs. And each year we do a different batch of clubs. Let's see. Now I have just prepared or created a form I call the payment voucher, which I'll be sending to all the clubs, which I think will help you in a way to conform or comply with the requirements of handling the grant audit. Let's see. So I think that pretty much I don't have much more to add about what the requirements are. Phil covered it pretty well. And if you will read the MOU, which you must sign and submit when you apply for the grant, it's only 3 pages long, and the FMP is only 2 pages. Pretty easy reading. And what I would say is that if you have any questions about it, feel free to call me anytime, email me or by telephone. I'd be very happy to answer your question and to guide you regarding the audit. So I think that's it. I'm open to Q&A later.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
We'll also put that form up on the district website for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to massage it a little bit more. This morning, I saw some things I want to kind of do it. Okay.
Thank you.
And I had a chance to look at it. We just got it this morning ourselves. But if you use that, I think you'll have a lot less difficulty keeping your accounts in order, because it's very complete about what needs to be done. So we look forward to Ron putting that up there so that we can use that as part of our grant process.
Yeah.
Moving on from stewardship, we're getting into district qualification. You may recognize this lady on your screen here. Naomi, of course, as the district governor, is actually the chief Rotary representative for the entire district, and as such is responsible to be sure that the district is qualified to receive grants. For district qualification, we need to complete the qualification process online annually. Okay, this is what the district does. we need to agree to implement the memorandum of understanding between Rotary Foundation and the district. And we need to do what we're doing right now, which is conducting a grant management seminar for all of our clubs. So these are the things that the district has to do. Now, from what you have to do, you have to agree to implement the club memorandum of understanding. You have to attend this seminar, and you have to complete any other district requirements. So this is what your club is required to do. So we take action on district grants, we complete our club qualification, we complete final reports on current district grants. We talk to the president-elect and incoming board about possible projects, both local and international. We discuss funding required and how to obtain it. And as Mark mentioned, it's a little more difficult now because we're not getting the 0.5%, the 50% match that we used to get on grants. You have to be ready to submit your district grant applications between July 1st and August 1st. And this is very important. And remember that all of your grants must be closed for previous year before we can consider your current application for grants. You also have to attend this seminar, and we need at least 2 members to do that so that you'll be ready for next year. Normally, this would be the president for this coming year, which is 2021-22. And if you have a president nominee, that person could attend also. It's a little bit early in the year for most people to be thinking about their nominee who would follow next year's president. But you can use a proxy to attend this seminar. And I always recommend that it be the chairman of your grants committee in your club, or at least your international grants chair. Those persons really need to know all about grants and how to go about them. The president and president-elect have to complete the club qualification documents, and those are as follows. You need to provide your most recent federal and state tax returns. Remember, you should be paying taxes as a club. You need to provide proof of your dedicated district grant account. So in other words, you have to have a separate account from your operations account. The memorandum of understanding, there is an addendum to that. And what the addendum does is allows you, see, normally on the foundation side, they wouldn't allow you to have a separate, a single account for all of your district grant projects. But the memorandum of understanding that we provide, and it is approved by the foundation, allows you to use one district grant account for all of your projects. Okay. However, and we'll see this a little later, they must be all accounted for separately. Even though you can use one check to pay all the different, grants that you may have out there, they must be accounted for separately so that we know that the money is actually going to that particular project. And you have to be current, of course, on all of your Rotary Foundation and District 5000 grant reporting. The Memorandum of Understanding, as I mentioned, is addressed initially at global grants. This is what the Rotary Foundation is of course there for, mostly is to fund in conjunction with the districts, the global grants. But again, that addendum that I mentioned allows you to extend a single grant account rather than having a different grant account for every single project that you do. You also have to have your club financial management plan, which meets the foundation's memorandum of understanding and also District 5000 requirements. The club qualification also simplifies bank account requirements, as I mentioned. One club district grant account. Global grants, though, do require a separate grant for each account, okay? If you are the club that is paying the bills, okay? Normally, this is not handled by the participating club. It's handled by the club on the other end who is actually administering the grant. So basically, if you do have a global grant, though, that you are sponsoring, we do need a separate account for that grant. Okay, as far as the district grant bank account, the club will maintain a dedicated bank account called district grants accounts. Any district grants funds received will be immediately deposited into the district grants account and dispersed only to funds, only to approved district grant projects. For the district grant projects in which the club is contributing cash to the project, the club will transfer the contributed cash to the district grant account and subsequently pay project-related expenses from the district grant account. So basically, we just want to separate your operational account from your district grant account and be sure that any money that you're planning to put towards your district grant is put into that district grant account. So this is a checklist that you can use to be sure that you're getting everything you need to do. So to qualify for global grants and district grants, clubs must complete qualification requirements by May 30th. Okay, so you'll have until May 30th to be sure that all of this is done. This checklist will just help you, and it is available online. You need your MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding. That's between the district and the club. You need the addendum that we talked about that allows you to put all of your district grant money into one account instead of having separate accounts. You need your financial management plan. We have to write in your grant bank account number and, if applicable, your global bank account number. Okay. We need evidence of the tax filing, tax returns, copy or a 990N confirmation, proof of general excise tax returns. Remember, you're supposed to be paying general excise tax on anything that's not related to membership, basically. So if you're doing your annual fundraiser, you do have to pay general excise tax on that. We do need evidence of the grant bank account, a bank statement or a check copy. We do need your district grant final reports submitted and approved by your district grants chair. And this is the final report that is required before we can fund any new projects that you want to do for the following year. And then, of course, you have to attend this fall seminar. So where do we find all this information? Well, it's conveniently located at rotaryd5000.org. It's in the drop-down menus. So you select Foundation and Grants. Then you select District Grants. And on the right sidebar, you'll see the forms. All the forms are listed there, everything that you need to know. So you don't have to remember all this stuff and write it all down. It's all there on the District 5000 website. And these are your resources as well. Laura, of course, is our DRFC chair. Mark is your grants guru for anything to do with global grants as well as district grants. Global grants specifically is James Ham. District grants, Dave Hamill. International service, Murray Visser. Scholarship chair is Alan Kusunoki. I'm the stewardship chair. And then your audit chair is Ron Young, okay? That's it.
Thank you. And we do have a few minutes left for questions. So if anyone, if you can help monitor raising hands, if you go into the participants section, there's a little blue thing that says raise your hand if you have a question, and then Benson and I will try to see you and call on you. Otherwise, you can unmute yourself and shout out. Yeah.
Or another way you can do it, gang, is just to write your question in the chat, and then fill in Mark and see it right away, and answer it if you have something in the chat.
Good too. But I want to go ahead and say thank you very much to both Mark and to Phil for the great presentations. There have been several questions about whether or not the PowerPoint would be available, as well as we know that the recording is going to go up within a couple of days. Naomi's very fast at that. But we will also try to make the stewardship portion, the PowerPoint, it's actually both of them, the PowerPoint themselves available. Usually we have to PDF them to get them onto the website, but we'll let those powers that know how to do those kinds of things see if they can get the actual PowerPoint up for the stewardship so you can present it to other people as well. Okay.
I made a couple of last minute tweaks on my report, so I'll send you the updated version. Should I send it to Benson or to? Laura?
No, send it to me so I can
Send
put
it
it
to
up.
Mark. Yeah,
Oh,
Mark's
yes,
the one
that's
that
Mark.
puts up
Yeah,
foundation.
there were just a couple of little changes I made before, just before the
We
meeting.
always do things,
Yeah.
right? Anyway, are there any questions that anyone has? I know that's a lot of information.
I have a question. I'm afraid I can't put it in the chat because I'm working
ahead.
remotely, and I apologize. But I do. This is Gwen Picaro from Metro, and my question is really, in this modern age, the idea of original documentation and check copies is. I'm just wondering whether or not a Google Drive set to copies of everything over a longer time period is sufficient for the demands of the audit.
That's a great question. It's the requirement for physical documents as well as electronic documents comes from Rotary International. So we will ask that question, Gwen, and see if Google Docs can be acceptable for the physical documents as well as the electronic version.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. I work for a global firm that we no longer are required to have the originals as much as, especially in days of COVID. And if we haven't asked, I would really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We'll certainly ask that. The answer frequently back to us is, remember that it's Rotary International, and the standards that we might be able to adhere to in the US might not necessarily be standards in some of the other countries that are part of Rotary. But you know, we will certainly ask if that would be possible for us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly make it a lot easier to get original documents, you know, see them at least, you know.
And yeah, Murray Visser is raising his hand physically.
Right.
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank Mark and Phil for a really good presentation. I learned a lot, or I relearned a lot. Mark, I have a question for you. You said a community assessment can be done by the host or international club. I thought only the host club did the community assessment, or am I wrong?
No, you're right. As a practical matter, the host club has to take the leading role in the community assessment, but often the international partner, especially if it's us, we know a little bit more about what is required by the Rotary Foundation, and so we can give input on the community assessment. Also, if, for example, if they rely too much on a certain subgroup of specialists, say you're working on a hospital project, and you only talk to the hospital administration, that doesn't really get you at what the community wants. You know, you need to have a little broader perspective, and so that's where we can come in and say, you know, the Rotary Foundation is going to want to know more about what community leaders want, not just the hospital administrator or, you know, the doctors or.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks,
yeah,
Murray. And for everyone's information, Murray Visser is the head of our International Service Committee, and he is also an excellent resource for global grants. Dave Malmstrom has his hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to have a clarification, Phil. I know you had said something about the fact that we would need to complete grants before we could get new grants. Is there the same issue for international, because often international take more than global grants take more than 1 year? We can do another global grant while one's still in progress, correct?
Yeah. So Dave, once your grant is approved, you have to make a progress report every 6 months. As long as you're current, the district can continue to award DDF for clubs, and we can continue to apply for global grants. And you know, you probably know, but our district is 100% in stewardship for global grants. So all of our clubs and all of our partners are keeping current on the progress reports and final reports.
Never say anything like that, bocce. But yeah, we work very hard to try to do that. But the important thing is for the district grants, because we try to get every club involved. If one club doesn't file a final report, we cannot submit the entire final district grant final report, which means we cannot get our new district grant money. Okay. Right. I want to just put in so thank you very much. I just want to put in a couple of other things that I want to really highlight, and that is for all of you. Dave Hamill is our district grants chair. He is also going to be the district grants chair next year. He said he's finally almost got it figured out. He wants to keep it going, and we said great. He has still got money. We worked really, really hard, and we had our district grant money here in August for the first time ever. But we are waiting for clubs to send in their bank information so that Dave can put the money directly into your bank account or send you the check. So please try to work with your clubs to get that done. We want that money out to clubs. There were still almost 20 clubs that had not yet received their funds. The other thing I want to mention is that all of these documentations that are going to be going back in, it will be monitored for next year by Dave Hamill. But everything, just make it a habit. Everything you want to get to anybody, you can send to grants at rotary.org. Grants at rotary.org. If you don't know who to send it to grants at rotary.org. And everybody on the foundation team can go in and pick up the information there, and we share it with everyone. That's where all of your documentation for next year will go. While Phil mentioned that the deadline is actually May 31st, the faster you can get those in, the one less worry you have. And that will mean we don't have to make a lot of phone calls in May. So go ahead while you're thinking about it, go onto the website, get those things signed. If you don't yet have a president nominee, your current president, your foundation chair, any other Rotarian can sign in that place. And then when you get your president nominee, we can update it. Okay. So any final questions? Yes,
yeah, we
Mary
got a couple of more questions. Laura, we
Okay.
have a question from Rotary Club of Kona, and then Kimo from Hilo has a question.
Okay, and then Mary Ann has a question.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, guys from Kona.
Okay.
Put your name in there.
Actually,
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Janice and Jim. And I actually more wanted to make a comment, and maybe I get a little clarification, but we did get audited, not this year, but last year, and I had a little bit of a complication in that First Hawaiian Bank would not give me copies of our bank cards, which was one of the requirements. So, and I had no idea that we needed to be keeping copies. So I am keeping copies now, but I think a lot of us didn't know that we needed to be keeping copies of the bank card. And I don't know about the other banks, but they would not give them to me. So they kind of had to let me go by because I provided copies of the checks showing that we had dual signatures. But that was a little hiccup for me when we were audited.
Okay.
So, hi, this is Ron. You're talking about the bank signature cards, authorized signers on the account?
Correct.
The card?
Correct.
Hello. Yeah. On that point, it's been stated that 2 signatures are required. But if you read the requirements, I think it's an MOU, is 2 signatures for a disbursement. So it doesn't mean that 2 signatures are required on a check. It could be 1 signature, a check, and another signature on the invoice. And that would be 2 eyes looking at the disbursement, and we would be satisfied that at least 2 people saw the disbursement and approved it for payment, you see. So keep that in mind. Now, requiring the difficulty of getting the card, we would be satisfied if board minutes was provided to show who the authorized signers were approved for that Rotary year. And that would suffice so that you don't have to get that signature card. But if you, at the time preparing it and make copies right away, then that will also be acceptable too. But so you don't really need it. Is that helpful?
Yes, and that's exactly what we ended up having to go through was we provided board minutes and the copies of the checks that showed we had 2 signatures. So it was satisfied, but it was a little disturbing at the time that I couldn't with the cards, but we got through it.
And we have had a few comments about, you know, that it is not necessarily as easy a process as it should seem. I want to tell you, Ron doesn't make up these rules. One of the reasons that District 5000 goes through this arduous audit process is because any given year, Rotary International can come and say, okay, District 5000, we're going to audit your district grant. And they will come in and do exactly what Ron is doing. So what we are doing is just making sure that the clubs are remembering that you're doing all of the things that we know you're supposed to be doing. But it's real easy since we change leadership every year to let something slip. So that's what this process is all about. And Ron's a real good guy to actually work with. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I hope you all noticed on Phil's initial slide that the Rotary Foundation is 100% on financial transparency and Charity Navigator. That's not easy to do. You know, we're one of probably 20 large foundations that does that. So, you know, nobody said that was easy. It's not easy. If it were, everybody would have it. But those cars mean a lot. And
I apologize. We are actually 5 minutes over time, which we try not to be. If you need to leave, do so with our blessings. And we thank you all for attending. What an amazing turnout. If you want to hang around for a minute, we have 2 more questions from Marianne and from Chemo Jim. So feel free to stay on if you wish. So Marianne, did you have a question?
Yeah, Laura. That website, is it grants@rotary.org or grants@rotaryd5000.org?
It's neither. The first one is in My Rotary.
No.
No. I'm talking about the District 5000.
The email, it's grants@rotary. Hang on a minute.
Org. Now you've said it. Now I have to go.
Laura, say it and put it in the chat.
Right. We'll put it in the chat. Yep. We'll send it to everybody. Right. It's the same place as you've been sending it for the last 3 years, whatever. Benson laughs at me. Yeah. I can't remember things. Right. Okay. Chemo.
Oh, thank you, Laura, and great presentation, Mark and Phil and Ron, and very informative, terrific. Hey, my question has to do with the November 1st deadline and funding the global grants. And, you know, as you know, it's like October 17th now, so we only have less than a couple of weeks. So just a point of clarification, I don't know who this is to, either Mark or Laura. In that funding, let's just say my club, and I'm not necessarily speaking for the Hilo Club, but let's just say it's been a tough year. And in order to get the DDF, District Designated Funds match, my club has to put or commit those dollars in order to get that DDF match and get the World Fund match. So I've got to figure out a couple of worthy projects, like a couple of those projects in Nepal, those projects we've been talking about, or India or whatever. But what you're asking for on November 1st is the actual commitment from my club. If my club is having some cash flow problems in terms of raising funds to fund projects, those monies aren't necessarily due on November 1st. It's the commitment that's required. Is that, could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, Kibo, that's absolutely correct. So, you know, if you haven't done your, you know, we recognize that you probably haven't done your fundraiser yet. that it may take some time. But, none of these grants are going to be approved before probably March. And a lot of them are not going to be approved in this Rotary year. So, or a few of them won't. So, yeah, I mean, make the commitment. And if you anticipate difficulties later on, get in touch with me and we'll try to do some matchmaking and see if, we can, if the club managing the grant is able to match your DDF, or if we can find another club that is willing.
So second question is, what if my club can't come up with the funds, or we don't feel comfortable or confident in making that commitment? What happens to my DDF? Does my DDF go away? Do I get it another time? How does that work if I don't make that commitment by November 1st?
So your DDF goes back into the DDF pool, and whichever club can use it and match it can use it.
Okay, great. All right, great talk, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, hey,
And
Laura.
it is grants at RotaryD5000.org.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Laura, we got a couple of more questions. One from Lonnie Bergstrom.
Okay, Lonnie.
Yeah.
Hi, this is back to the bank signature cards. I have been involved in the grants the last 2 years for our club, and I really don't recall ever seeing a need for copies of the bank signature card. And right now in my head, I'm like, okay, I better go back and get those minutes that indicate
I'll talk
the
to our
signers for that. So I think maybe that should be added to the MOU or somewhere get written in there, because this is the first I've seen of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And
can I add to that the rationale? The reason is we need to see, the auditor needs to see who's authorized to make that disbursement. And that thing about not getting it from the bank is the authorized signer from the bank that needs to ask for that copy. But it is best to make the copy before you take it to the bank in case they lose it or they don't post it, which we've had happen.
Can you get the signature cards 2 years later from the bank, or
yes.
is that destroyed?
Well, no. If you replaced it, they won't have it. But Ron did say that in absence of that signature card copy, that they would take the board minutes. But the reason why they want the minutes or the copy of the SIG card is to see who is authorized to make that disbursement. So it's those two signatures, either on the check or on the disbursement form, that is necessary to see if it was authorized correctly.
I'd like to add something here. I mentioned earlier about a payment voucher form that I created, and I would like to suggest all the clubs look at it. We'll send it out, and on it, for each payment that the club would make, this voucher form, payment voucher form, has a section that allows for 2 signatures on it. And I think that would suffice for our committee that it was properly authorized, the payment. The 2 signatures, as long as the 2 signatures are backed up by, well, for the check signing, yeah, you got to have authorized signatures. But for the purpose of proper disbursement, I think any 2 signatures would be suffice. Is that okay, Laura?
Yeah.
I think any 2 signatures of our club members would suffice. And then backing that up could be minutes that also authorize the payment of that for that project. So we look at different documents that could corroborate the payment, and it's not that rigid, you see, that we don't have to have 2 signatures on a check. In fact, banks will process a check, though, even though you say 2 signatures, they'll process it with 1 signature. They will not examine checks to make sure there's 2 signatures on it. So likewise, we don't require 2. Does that help you? Yeah.
Can I say too that this makes the case for a stewardship chair even more solid and important?
Yeah, I mentioned that. Stewardship or archive.
Yes, Murray.
Something, yeah.
Yes, Murray.
Mark, I have another question. So initially, tell me if I'm if I heard this right. To start a global grant, you initially fill it out at the Rotary International website. My account, is that correct? But,
yes, you
but
have
any local district, foundation, and grants chair can see what's been filled out at the Rotary International website. Is that correct? Like you and Laura.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Laura, we had one more question from Anne-Marie Studer. Anne-Marie, are you still on?
Great.
You can
Thank
answer
you.
questions.
Anne-Marie, still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. My question I put in the chat was, after chemo, what I understood was, are we making a commitment here before November 1st? The commitment we make, that's going to be for projects that are due like in 3 years' time, 2 years' time. And I'm asking this because our club, when I joined last year, you know, we had to come up with funding for projects that a president had committed to 3 years prior.
Right.
You know, that, you know, we were short with money on that. So that's what my question is.
If I could answer just real quickly, yes, the control over how long it takes for these grants to get approved and ready to fund is a collaboration between the international partner, the host partner, and Rotary International. So they vary dramatically between how fast they can get approved. Mark has created another form, which is going to be up on the website if it's not already, which is a commitment that we are putting, that we are making a commitment to Dave Mosdran's, to the Rotary Club of Honolulu Sunrise is doing a global grant project in Thailand. And we have made a commitment that we will put $800 of our district designated funds and we'll match that. And
Thank
then
you,
Dave
Laura.
will
I'll
put
accept
that on
that.
there. Yeah, thank you. And then Dave will put that on his grant as part of his funding. And we'll keep that requirement. You need it within your club, and then your treasurer will need to make sure that that $800 is put aside, so that at some point, either 3 months from now, 6 months from now, or 3 years from now, Dave will come back and say, oh, thank God, we finished everything. We've got it approved. We need our $800 sent to Rotary International. Okay.
Okay, that's a great explanation, Laura.
That's the way the process works.
Yeah, that's great. And let me just ask you one more thing, because our club isn't meeting before November 1st. Our next meeting is after November 1st. So, you know, it's kind of hard to get their agreement on something. What should we do?
Email.
Just email and see what comes back? Okay. Thank you.
The list of grants is on the D5000 website. So read down through there. There are some really good ones. And all those that are up there have been vetted to Mark and James and Murray and the group feel that those have a good potential for making, so that you
okay, great.
Yes, Rich Seagar.
Yeah, quick comment. The lady just said that we were stuck with something that a club president had made a commitment for some years prior. I've been burned a couple times on a global grant where a club just said, we don't know anything about your commitment. And it wound up becoming a he said, she said. So you should have a turnover with the International Services Chair, Foundation Chair, and the presidents to know what your current commitments to the club are. Because I really got burned. I had to come up with like $2,800 because one club said, we don't know anything about it. And I had proof that they did, but they said, well, they denied it. You know the one, Mark.
That's exactly why Mark came up with this wonderful form.
That's right, yeah.
I want to encourage everyone to use. So there's no surprises later on either side.
And I think it's important. I think it's also important for us to make sure that clubs put something in their budgets or their financials so they know there is a commitment for these fees going on, because when you do have the turnover of leadership, we often find that sometimes that person may even leave the club and they're no longer there to be able to find out that information. So it's important to try to put something within your ledger that says we've made a commitment to this grant for this club and this global grant.
And we recommend that you put the global grant number in there. Every club, every grant you're committing to already has a global grant number. So put the global grant number in there so there won't be any question of which Nepal project or which Thailand project or which project you're already committed to. So Lonnie, if I could ask you to please send whatever I'm supposed to be doing for you to me as an email. I've already forgotten. So, you know, I would appreciate that. Thank you. All righty. And sorry, you have to put up with me these days this way, guys. Anyway, I really, really appreciate the incredible turnout. Thank you to District Governor Naomi for joining us, and we didn't get to introduce you at the beginning, and to Benson for always doing this fantastic job of keeping everybody organized and on track. To our presenters, Mark Harbison and Phil Sammer and Ron Young, thank you so very much. And a reminder from Anne Marie that there is at this moment going on live a Rotary auction for fundraiser for various clubs and for Polio Plus. So it was a great time to go check that out. I believe Anne Marie may have put the link into the chat session. So check that out. We thank everyone. Don't forget next week, I won't send out the Zoom link because I'll send out the wrong one, but Naomi and Benson will send out a Zoom link to everyone for World Polio Day, which will be here from 10 to 11:30, which is going to be an absolutely fantastic hour and a half. Thank you all for your time. We appreciate it. Don't be shy about asking questions.
Naomi
wants to say something. Okay.
Go ahead, Naomi.
So this webinar actually is until 11:30, and we sent questions in the chat I believe we did not answer. So can we please answer those questions in the chat?
The one today, right now, you mean?
Yeah, there was one from Keone about the timing. Keone, you want to ask your question? About you asked a question about the deadlines?
Yeah, they kind of briefly touched upon it, so I was kind of just making sure I understood that a little bit better as far as the differences between. I think someone brought it up a little while ago, so that helps. It's a lot of information, so I'll have to regroup with my club and see where we stand.
And just a brief recap. I mean, you know, what we try to do every year is to keep the deadlines the same so that they don't keep changing every year. So basically, right now, you do have to get all of your qualification documents in. The deadline is May 31st. We love to have everything in by pre-pets so that we can stop worrying about it. The district grant deadline is August 1st. The global grant commitment deadline is November 1st. Your final report deadline is May 31st. So those are your deadlines, no changes from the last several years, and the same I hope will continue through next year as well. All righty.
Okay, so there was a question about the documentation, and someone asked if their photos of things should be okay. And I think for the receipts, it does not need to be the original receipt. It can be a copy of the receipt. A photo of the receipt is fine as well. Okay, so that's what they're looking for, is the receipt. Okay,
and it's legible. Be careful on the photos, as long as it's legible. Okay.
Okay. And Anne Marie was asking about the pledge for 3 years. I know we answered that, but Anne Marie, some of those projects are ongoing now, so it's not necessarily going to be a pledge for 3 years from now. It could be a pledge for a grant that is going to happen this year. But I would suggest on that new form that Mark created, the pledge form, which is his documentation that someone pledged their funds. You should keep that into your folder. Everyone should have a folder that you're going to keep for 5 to 7 years of all of your documentation So when the auditor comes, it's all in there already. So I was just putting that list of things that the auditor is asking for into the front of that folder. And every year you're keeping the documents, the MOU, the addendum, the financial forms in that folder, your receipt, the application, and the final grant application in there. So it's all in one place. So if you don't have one, please start accumulating that. Because yeah, our documentation right now does say you're going to have a hard copy and a digital copy. We're going to discuss that, but a hard copy is best in case the digital copy gets lost or crashes. And it's also good to pass that folder on to the next chair, the treasurer, or whoever's handling that. Okay, so it's really good, important to keep those documents. Mark?
Joy just asked an important question on the chat. Does the money allocated for grants get swept for the following year if they are not claimed? The answer to that is no. In the district grants, once the August 1st deadline is passed, the money goes back into a pool. Usually it's a very small pool because most of the clubs use their district grant money. So, you know, there may be 4,000 or 5,000 through 2,000 or 3,000 left at the after August 1. That is available for clubs to make a new application to spend the money and with a new project. And that's first come, first served. You still have to do the matching. Same thing with global grants. If you miss the November 1 deadline, your DDF goes into a pool. You can attempt to arrange with another club to do the matching and still have control over which grant the money goes to. But if you don't make a commitment, the money goes to another club to do a global grant project. It does not roll over into the following year.
Okay, there is another question about a list of deadlines and what's required of the president's PEs. Right. Yes, there is a calendar, which we did send out to the current presidents, and we put that on the website in the president officer page. So you can all take a look at that calendar.
Okay. All righty. Is that all the questions?
I believe so.
I see. I think so. Thank you again very, very much. If you have additional questions, reach out to any of us, or you can put it in through the grants at rotaryd5000.org. Thank you for correcting me, everybody. All right. Again, thank you to everyone, and go out there and check out the auction, and we'll see you next week at World Polio Day. Thank you.
Good job, everybody.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you, Benson.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you all.
I'll wait till everybody goes. So
have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, team.
Thanks, everyone. Hopefully we got you all.
Yeah. Hey. Naomi, how did it go today?
Good.
Good. Yeah, boy, I love Ken Keith's speech, man. It was awesome.
Oh, I wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
Did you record that?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, good. So do us peons have access to that as well?